Hello and welcome. This is Stephen Douthwaite from AlphaBioCom, and I'm recording an audio file to complement a presentation that I delivered at the International Publication Planning Association meeting, which took place in February of 2020. This presentation is designed to focus on avoiding errors in scientific and peer-reviewed publications. So, here we go. Defining and developing high-quality content means that we want to firstly make sure that we avoid any type of error. Now, we often take for granted the peer review process. However, a number of errors have been found to be shown in the final peer-reviewed publication, and that is something that we all want to avoid. The peer-reviewed publication is one of the most trusted and revered items in scientific and medical communications. And it's important that we pay close attention to making sure that the processes and the means by which we develop publications are perfect, and if not perfect, as close to perfect as humanly possible. To begin with, it's an interesting exercise to calculate how many keystrokes go into preparing and producing a basic primary medical publication. We estimate that on an average peer-reviewed publication of, say, 3,500 words, with an average number of characters per word, with spaces of 5 to 6, that makes a total number of characters in a final publication of 17,500. But the story doesn't end there. We need to add in the additional keystrokes from all the outlines and drafts. We need to add in all of the keystrokes from edits from the clients, along with edits from the authors. We then need to add in keystrokes from tables and figures. And then finally, we're adding in all the references and all the work that goes into those. So conservatively, it's fair to say that the number probably exceeds 80,000 keystrokes. That's a lot of keystrokes, and that's a huge opportunity for an error to creep in. So how often do we actually see errors? Well, from a basic PubMed search that we conducted at AlphaBioCom from January the 1st, 2015 to September the 4th, 2019, we found out that there were 63,500 errata published on PubMed across a denominator of 5.4 million published papers. That for us gave us an error rate of around 1.2%. So is that an accurate number, or is that just the tip of an iceberg? For further information, let's dive into the data and see what's actually been published on the frequency of errors. Castillo et al. In 2012 did a very similar analysis to us, looking at the post-publication errata in 5 journals, across a total of 158 published errata across a numerator of 8,900 articles, and their error rate was 1.8%, which puts us very similar to the error rate that we had suggested from a simple PubMed search. Bart et al. Also in 2012 assessed 314 papers, looking at errata across 5 leading medical journals, and they actually placed a restriction on their impact factors, which ranged from 14 to 52. So they were looking at mid to high tier journals, and they found that there was an error rate of between 0.8% to just under 2%. Again, reinforcing the number that we had in our mind at the beginning of this session, which was around 1 to 1.5%. But are we really looking at the true perspective, or are we just looking at what's sticking up above the surface of the water? Our next study looks at a work from Costantino et al. In 2013. This group studied 200 sequential original articles with at least 2 tables, and they applied some additional inclusion criteria to eventually look at around about 125 articles. What they found was that they found 102 of the 125 articles contained at least one error. That's an error rate of 82%. In the same set of papers published across 3 medical journals, which I should have mentioned. But surely peer review is set up to remove errors such as these. Well, one would hope and expect that peer review would do that. So we dived in to see what the published literature has to say about this. We found this article from Baxt et al. Again in 2013, where a fictitious manuscript was created which contained 10 major and 13 minor errors. That manuscript was submitted to a total of 262 peer reviewers. They were asked to identify the errors and recommend whether this should be forwarded for publication. So the question is, how often will we miss an error? And what are we going to do to prevent errors from occurring in the first place? And this is something that at AlphaBioCom we have placed great emphasis on and a high degree of attention over the past 5 years to ensure that every publication we produce is perfect and error-free. So what we're going to talk about now are some processes that we can all implement to ensure that our final peer-reviewed publication is perfect. So to ensure that we can produce perfect materials, let's take a look at other industries and see what they've done. And a good example comes from the airline industry. In 1935, following the crash of a Boeing B-17 in Dayton, Ohio, the crash investigators discovered that the 2 pilots had forgotten to disengage the gust locks. Gust locks, for those of you who don't know, are the devices on an airplane wing that prevent the airplane from becoming unstable whilst it's parked on the ground. They're necessary for when the aircraft is parked, but you don't want them engaged when the aircraft is flying. Following this, a series of checklists were put into place, and the checklists prevented many, many more accidents such as this. However, in Massachusetts, on May the 31st in 2014, a Gulfstream 4 crashed, killing the pilots, the flight attendants and the passengers. And it was discovered that on that plane, the pilots had indeed forgotten to disengage the gust locks. And this led to a investigation by the National Transportation Safety Board to identify why, even though this was part of a checklist, that it was failed and overlooked. What they found was that failure to perform the checklist was actually quite common, and this led to further focus and reinforcement of the importance of checklists. Dr. Atul Gawande has pioneered in the improvements of quality in surgery, and if you are interested, you can follow the links on this slide that will share with you the work that Dr. Gawande did. Basically, what he discovered was that over 250,000 people died from medical errors in the US every year, and that 150,000 of those deaths were specific to surgery. This isn't just a problem in the US, it's a problem worldwide. And so he was tasked by the WHO to identify what can be done to improve this. And Dr. Gawande and his team conducted a research program looking to assess quality checks and checklists in surgery. What they found was alarming, that when a checklist was followed, which included basic items like introducing every member of the surgical team to one another by name, along with many other aspects, but when the checklists were followed, the incidence of surgical error reduced significantly, which led to 40% fewer deaths from surgical errors. It's interesting to note that the 8 centres where the study was ran included both the developed, the developing worlds, major institutional educational centres as well as regional and local hospitals. And the benefits were seen across each and every aspect of the study. So checklists truly do save lives. In the work that we do in scientific and medical communications, they're equally as important. Physicians, medical assistants, medical professionals, medical practitioners make decisions for patients about healthcare based on high quality educational materials. The highest quality educational communication service is the peer-reviewed publication. It's the one that most trust and faith is placed in, and therefore it's beholden upon all of us to ensure that the work that we produce is perfect, most definitely error-free. So in conclusion, what we have found is that a devotion to perfection, following processes, procedures and checklists, means that we can deliver error-free, high-quality publications. We reward and promote the use of checklists to supplement human knowledge and skills because wherever humans are involved, errors unfortunately are inevitable. Recognizing that to err is human, but to ignore the problem or the potential for a problem is recklessness, which means that all of us are beholden to ensure we follow checklists, we follow processes, and we adhere to them 100%. With that dedication, with that devotion to perfection, we can fulfill our mission, which is to provide the highest quality service in the scientific communications industry. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please call me, Stephen Douthwaite, on 610-550-9523 or email us at info@alphabiocom.com.